Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We've got playa props on a pretty big Thursday slate here with 9 games in the NBA tonight. Want to make sure that you are also checking out the other video we have up for you, Best Bets. So like and subscribe to that page, bringing you these videos each and every weekday. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Use that odds finder tool that we have up there. Make sure that you are getting the best odds available to you from all of these books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's just get right into it and give us your first NBA playa prop here. Wemby stakes, baby.
First Wemby of the year for myself. I've been guarded in my expectations for this young man. I think it takes some time to get used to the NBA, but I'm starting to see signs that he is becoming a huge problem for the opposition and finally getting. I mean, even though the minutes haven't necessarily been there, he's averaging 22 and 12 in his last 3 with 3 blocks. That includes, a 25-minute outing at Denver in a blowout where Jokic was just, embarrassing him. But now back home, where he's averaged like more young players. He's going to average more at home, 20 a game, nearly 10 rebounds, playing 3 more minutes per game, also more assists and blocks. I know you'd like to tack on the assists perhaps here against Atlanta, which is very generous all around in terms of assists and points. I think I like the juice on the blocks, plus 140. I mean, he averages 3 blocks at home or more, and Atlanta's actually like 5th in opponent's block rate. Trey will go in there, try his floater, and then realize, oh my God, that guy has an 11-foot wingspan, and I cannot get it over him. I mean, the shooting struggles, I still don't know what to make of it because of that wingspan. Like, nobody's bothering his shot. He's shooting 25% from 3. But I think it could come around. I mean, I mentioned those numbers. If you do it just per 36, he's averaging 35 points and rebounds almost with a 30% usage rate. And, can he play 36 minutes against Atlanta? I mean, probably. They're not really, a team that's going to bully him down low. He's able to play that power forward position against smaller guys. Let Zach Collins deal with their centers. Atlanta right now allowing the 3rd most rebounds in their last 3. Also allowing the 4th most offensive rebounds on the year. And the Wemby has 12 OREBs in his last 5, playing at the 4th fastest pace. They allow 125.5 a game, which, expect, and sixth most to power forwards, also 6th most rebounds to centers. So just the opportunity to get some stats here. I think, look at his last 3 averages in some tougher matchups and say, look, this is an inflation spot. We've been targeting Hawks, Wizards, Hornets, Pacers for inflation, especially at the power forward position. Those are particularly generous defenses to go against.
Definitely. And it's similar scenario here. I'm honestly just going to run into my bet, which is from this game. By the way, I love the Wemby bet. I tried to pitch it to Nate, and he had already been looking at it and took it and loved it. And so we're on the same page entirely with that one. Like you briefly mentioned, I think I do love the points, rebounds, and assists. It's a little bit high, but he's going over that number still. 7 of his last 10 with that, and the usage is really what we keep looking at here, up to nearly 30%. And I was even kind of thinking the only thing that's kind of hurting Wemby in his race for Rookie of the Year with Chet is that like Chet's efficiency is very, very much so better, and he's become sort of a volume shooter on a bad team, which is kind of what we all wanted. We were all like, don't limit him, please don't handcuff him to play within some kind of system that is entirely non-existent. I mean, the Spurs are starting dudes out of position as like a test thing for future rosters that they want to build. Like, they're using a lot of this season as a test case and giving him as much volume as he wants. So love this bet. And I'm really going to the other side and just taking the Spurs to have to guard a similar style of position, if you will. So DeAndre Hunter over 16.5 points. You brought this to my attention, and I totally agree. Minus 108 on FanDuel for a full unit there. He's topped this in 4 straight, including much tougher games than he's going to have against the Spurs down low when he did that against Cleveland and Boston. It's also predicated on him being the dude in that position now that's going to get the highest usage. Jalen Johnson, after just starting to like surge up the sort of priority rankings on this team with the 3rd most minutes and all the other kind of things that he was doing to be sort of the 2nd most important player. Well, now they're getting that type of stuff from DeAndre Hunter, and I do think Jalen Johnson will come back and sort of reclaim it. But right now it's DeAndre Hunter that they need playing defense on the wing and even a little bit down low, and then getting out and helping them on the fast break with some size and some speed to finish around the rim. And that's why some of that stuff's gone up for him as well. His last 4, which did have one Jalen Johnson game in there, he's at 22 a game, just 20% usage, but his individual offensive rating is nearly 139, which is insane. And now you sort of have the Hawks multiplier for Wemby. Well, you get the Spurs multiplier for DeAndre Hunter, they're equally as bad at guarding that sort of position of like long athletic wing who can drive from the 3-point line and can even post up, make that little mid range stuff like that. So eighth most points per game allowed to power forwards for the Spurs this season. And then you've got Sadiq Bey coming in, getting some minutes, but he's also a little bit more of a three when you need when you have DeAndre Hunter there alongside him with Clint Capella. So a really good spot for him to be able to play down low on the like extended baseline, if you will, as well for DeAndre Hunter, where he gets a ton of points. He likes to play in the Spurs as well. Who doesn't? But his last two versus the Spurs, we're talking about 18 points per game, 52% from the field, continuing that incredible offensive rating up around 123 for him in these games against the Spurs last season. So plenty more to come for DeAndre Hunter in this game. Plenty of points in like a nearly 250 point total. That's the reason we're both looking at overs for a couple guys, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like it's a good matchup for everyone according to the line we have here in terms of overs. But for Hunter, yeah, I think you rely on the fact that he's been scared about losing his job at this point. I mean, Jalen Johnson just came in and took it right out of his hands to start the season. I mean, he can still slide over to that small forward spot at times, but Bogey hot off the bench, it's just like you better play well or you're not going to have minutes anymore. In this Quinn Snyder system, and that kind of new sheriff in town. And he's responded by playing extremely well, extremely efficiently in his last four since JJ went down. He's got to maintain that, especially take advantage of the good matchups here. Another good matchup here is Brooklyn at home against Charlotte. And I'll take Spencer Dinwiddie to stay hot, another guy who's been playing really well in his last four. I'll go over 28.5 points, rebounds, assists. He's a guy who fills the entire stat sheet in terms of those three, and it's kind of hard to rely on one or the other. So just group them all together here. I mean, 12.5 rebounds and assists is pretty low, but there is some variance with rebounds that I think scared me off here. But the thing here is that it's been 4 games without Cam Thomas. He was quiet when he came back from that ankle injury, which he injured against Charlotte, so we didn't get to see what he did in that role, by the way. Then he was quiet for a few because Cam Thomas was soaking up tons of usage. Ben Simmons was still out there. Both those guys are out. In 9 games since, averaging 18.5 and 7.5 dimes, so getting 30 PRA consistently, playing 34 minutes. You look at his last 4, where he started to thrive with that confidence, playing 39 minutes, getting 22, 5.5, 9.5. And that includes a relative dud against Miami, 14-2 and 11. Which is the GOAT guarding point guards. In 3 non-Miami games, he has a 26% usage rate, 36% assist rate, 11% total rebounds. So very efficient piling those things up. Charlotte is bottom 8 in terms of effective field goal, assists, paint points, gives up production everywhere, 6th fastest pace. He went for 24, 8 and 8 with the Nets against Charlotte last year, and that was a gross 102-86 game. The Nets are playing a little bit better offensively now. I think this game should have more points. I mean, Charlotte has a 124 defensive rating on the road, and there's just no other options for the Nets, right? Dennis Smith Jr. is questionable. They've assigned 3 of their other guards to the G League, and just letting the veteran go out there and play like 40 minutes in Dinwiddie, so I'm going to keep riding with him.
Yeah, that's cool. I think Cam Thomas might he's playing Thursday. He said he'll play Thursday. I don't know. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that off the top.
I mean, that's why we have the rebounds and assists in there.
Yeah.
I don't think Dinwiddie's gonna take a seat. That the correlation in terms of lower usage might be there, but the point is, 9 games without Cam, his stats were elevated, but then the last 4, you've seen him take off in terms of like, I can run this team, and Mikal Bridges being like, good, let me play off ball a little more,
right.
And the Nets offense taking off that way. So, I think he can still be that point guard that fills up the rebounds and assists.
Yeah. And to be clear, Cam Thomas can say he's playing all he wants. The coaching staff can also say, no, you aren't. So we'll see how it goes. That's just a report that he gave reporters at Shoot Around this morning from where they're playing that game, which I believe is in Brooklyn, right? Yeah, so it was in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But
this is what we get when we do the show late enough that we get actual Shoot Around reports. And surprise, Cam Thomas not really on the injury report in terms of even questionable, but he might be back.
I know. So funny. So funny how the NBA just loves to have its timing so freaking like weird and rigid. But at any rate, I'm going to finish things off with a game that we do know most of the guys who are playing because I don't expect the Lakers to have any late scratches. But I'm taking an under for AD. You brought to my attention the rebounds, and then we both kind of went back and forth on it. And we're like, let's go under PRA for AD. Because you can get rebounds if you want them against the OKC Thunder right now. But AD under 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined. You can get that minus 105. He's gone under this number in 6 of his last 10, and the rebounds are a big part of targeting this, where he's gone under 14 boards in 7 of his last 10. He's back on his every other game stuff, right? Like we were talking about earlier. If you look at the last 5, let's go. He had 40 PRA, then he goes 46, then he goes 27, then he goes 48, then he goes 30, then he goes 48. And there's not even really that much correlation because the teams he's doing it against are very good down low. I think Walker Kessler was there for that Utah game, even in some limited capacity. And then Detroit with Jalen Duren there is good. He just crushed them last night, though. That wasn't even a close game. Either way, this is a much better team, regardless of the fact that Oklahoma City has had trouble overall as a rebounding team right now in terms of their rebound percentage. They are still a top 4 defense in the NBA, one of only a couple teams to have a top 10 offensive and defensive ratings on the season. And it's not that it's like a terrible matchup for AD. It's just that this is very high for a guy coming off of a back-to-back where he did play 29 minutes. And I said it in the best bets video where I'm fading the Lakers tonight on their line as well, the spread. Like the minutes that he played last night were still there. Now they have to travel to OKC. That's all the way at the bottom of the country from where they just were in Detroit. And it's not going to be opportunistic for him when he's in these situations. So the last 2 back-to-backs for him, 9 points, 9 boards, 0 assists versus sack. Then and you mentioned he's playing real minutes. Like he had 36 minutes then in this other game against Dallas on the back-to-back this season. 10 points, 13 boards, 4 assists. And the points weren't there. So I think combining them, like you were definitely suggesting as well. I like the under rebounds for him just because it's like 2 games in a row, tired legs, potential blowout possibilities. Just saying, I think Oklahoma City is going to come out firing after losing to Minnesota and really just getting knocked out early in that in-season tournament, which I think a lot of people expected them to like come out and really do well in that as the prototype of team that is young and could use a victory like that in a get a trophy of some kind, essentially, and $1 million. But either way, I think that's a big part of their sort of determination tonight to beat the Lakers, who they're always going to bring it against. And I don't see AD. I see him falling back. This feels like another recession game for him, and he'll continue the pattern of I can't have 2 good games in a row, so guess I got to go under 42 here.
Yeah, a bit of a front runner guy at this point, isn't he? I mean, yeah, you mentioned those Detroit and Jazz games; those were like 35-point wins, and he's putting up numbers against teams that are just like, okay, yeah, whatever, like this is over. OKC is not a doormat by any means. Chet is not a doormat, even though he is skinny. Like maybe AD can overpower him a couple times. Maybe he comes up with a block. But in any case, I'm not trusting AD to score from the perimeter. And I am trusting OKC's overall defensive scheme and concepts under Dagnall. They're like the number 1 defense in their last 8 to 10 games here. So any number that includes points and assists for AD, I will gladly go under there.
I dig it, yeah. And that's the point of adding them both to it. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along, like and subscribe. Also have those best bets up for you today. Up 30 units or so on the season for you guys. So until we see you next, happy betting.